Hey, everybody. It's Nancy A. Shenker, also known as the Geezerproofer. And it's been a little while since I recorded some new content. I actually had an Ozempic OD, which I may talk about in a future podcast, but I'm as back to normal as I can be after a week. Apparently, it takes 5 weeks to get out of one's system, but I'm none the worse for wear, and I'm never going to do that shit again. So I am really, really, really excited about today's guest. It's Casey Chester, and Casey is somebody who I've known for, I counted it out, Casey, it's been about 12 years, the dirty dozen. Wow. And Casey used to be a neighbor of mine when I lived back in New York. And we were going through our divorce journeys roughly around the same time and commiserated on the divorce process, on our dating lives, and what better person to have as a guest to talk about the 90-day dating rule? Because between Casey and I, we probably have been on, I don't even know, I don't want to count, but let's say over 1,000 dates. Casey, you're about to say something?
No, I was going to say there's many failed 90 days of dating gone.
Yeah, if we could even get to those 90 days with the same person. So that's kind of where I want to get started, Casey. You and I are both still, on the dating circuit. We're on and off. We've learned a tremendous amount over that time. And I want to actually start not with the 90 days, but with that very first date. Sometimes you don't even want to meet somebody based on text messages or a phone call. But let's say you do get to that point where you meet somebody for coffee or a drink. What are some of those things that immediately give you ick at a first meeting?
For me, it's like how quickly they're willing to move. You know what I mean? Like everybody has their own sort of agenda and their intentions, right? So it's just like if they're automatically like calling you babe like really fast, it's like, we don't know each other, but I think people want to feel really comfortable sometimes, and they're just, sort of love bombing you a little bit. And it's just something to keep an eye on, quickly. As much as you want that rush and you feel so good, chill out,
Totally. I mean, I get that a lot of my text messages, and even though it says in my profile, don't begin with, hey, gorgeous, or you're pretty, usually with you're misspelled. If somebody's calling me sexy before we've even had a phone conversation, that's an ick for me, because it means, it's not for everybody. Some people might be really flattered, but I know I'm sexy, and that's not what I'm on the sites looking for. So ick.
Most likely they don't remember your name.
Probably.
Everybody's babe at that point.
Or they're doing the cut and paste, as one of my friends says.
Totally.
Other things, obviously if they're way older, way younger, way fatter, nothing like their profile pic. But, if they smell, I'm not talking about like too much cologne.
Well, I always like, as I some people would show up completely nervous, because they weren't all of what they said they were on their profile. But if you have a good connection with them, just talking to them, why not just enjoy the time while you're there? I mean, you're supposed to be present. It doesn't have to work out, but you liked them over the phone or whatever. So I've been on plenty of dates where I wasn't attracted to them when I saw them in person, but at the same time, I actually had a good time with them. Just didn't work out, but you have to kind of relax them. I always say it's not really a date. It's kind of a meeting. Like, let's forget about the date. We're just like, let's just meet. And then if we like each other, we'll go on a date after that.
Perfect. Yeah. Spot on. And what's been interesting for me, because I'm a marketing consultant, sometimes I'll go out with a guy and we know that we just don't have a romantic match. And then halfway through, they'll start asking me for either a job or marketing advice. And I just have to be very sweet about it and say, well, I'm off duty right now. And I normally charge $300 an hour for consulting. And if you want to hire me, we could talk about that. But that's not why I went on Bumble to get new clients, although it has resulted in some clients over the last 10 years. So not complaining about that.
Totally. I've definitely worked with some people as well.
So you meet somebody, you get through the meet, you go on a date, a meal, a concert, something else. You get to date number 3, which for me these days has been kind of a rarity. But then you get past that and you're like, all right, this is somebody who I would like to hang out with. What are some of the things that you need to do in those first 90 days to really begin to see all facets of that person's personality?
Well, a lot of people love to put their best foot forward, and I always say if you're going to put your best foot forward, you definitely should be able to stand on it. We all want to be something that we're not, I mean, not I'm saying we all do, but I mean, I've told people in the past, like, if you think you can do that, the best place to have this conversation is with yourself in the mirror. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror and not turn away or look at yourself and go, you know what, I'm really freaking lying right now. I'm not this guy or this woman. Because we want to be like, our businesses are booming and, we're really cool with our ex-spouse and our kids are happy and fine. And I've saved, kittens from trees and, you're just trying to be the best thing ever. And then like by month 2, it's like, you find out that the ex-wife is not cool. Your, ex-husband is totally like getting in the way. The kids are depressed and you've never,
or they're still or they're still married.
Yeah. And you're allergic to cats.
A technique I learned during the pandemic is doing a video chat can be great because you could actually see the inside of somebody's apartment without actually being in their apartment. Like, your aesthetic, like you could put up a fake Zoom background, but I'll sometimes be so bold to say, oh, is that your house? And what's that painting on the wall? And tell me the story behind it. I went out with a guy once who like wined and dined me, back to your love bombing story, and then invited me over to watch a football game. And I found out he was living in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate at the age of 65. And again, people fall on bad times. That shit happens. But just like be honest, be authentic, be real. Let me make the decision as to whether I'm down with that.
I agree. I'm not a big fan of FaceTime meetings because I feel like it's too, like we do a lot of this Zooming stuff. So I need to feel like their energy next to me. In fact, I don't even like to sit across a table. It's too like interview-like. I like to sit at a bar next to each other and just kind of get that energy because I think it tells you a lot. I'm also not the type that feels that you'll know right away. I think there's a little bit of time. You can't make judgments so quickly. So after like date 3, like you're saying, it's like you start to kind of feel, do I want to go to date 4 or 5 or hang out, with this person like outside of a restaurant, bring them home. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like meet the family and like, all your, coworkers and stuff yet. But
no, I would say that's kind of that's a danger sign. Like if you're on the 3rd date with someone and all of a sudden they're introducing you to their kids and their family, like run away. It's like way too early on.
Definitely keep the kids out of it for a while. Unless like the kids want to get to know you after around like month 3 and they've been hearing your name or you've been calling and keeping them occupied. And it's like, they like want to find out who this person is. I think that's cool. But what was that?
I was going to say, have you ever had an incident within the first 90 days where you've had to like tackle a crisis together? And a crisis could be like a car not starting. It could be somebody having anaphylactic shock in the middle of the date. Thankfully, I've never had anything that was like near-death experience on a date. But, I did have an experience where the battery on my Mini was dead. And it was actually really good because I saw how we worked together to solve a problem, contrasted with the time that it's not like my car battery dies all the time, but it was after a hurricane, the car battery died. It was the middle of the night. And instead of like calling 911 or trying to get my battery started, this guy started playing saxophone music on his phone. Like, I'm like, what are we going to do? Just like sit here all night and what my car washes out to sea, but at least I'll be calm when I die. So that's always like a good test. Do you have any interesting stories of shit that's happened in the first 90 days where you've said, this is not somebody that I want to problem solve with?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there too. To your point, having like hard conversations and understanding how to deal with stress is like a huge thing. But people don't want to deal with that. They just want to like push it under the carpet and just like keep moving. But I just feel like there's a lot of like just unsaid things that just keep going on, and once you start having sex, you're caught in lust. And I wouldn't say I have like any saxophone playing people like, well, I had a flat tire, I'd be pretty annoyed. But I feel like there's a lot of like diversion when there's like something, coming up that could potentially be like a conflict between me and somebody else. It's just how are they going to talk to you? How are they going to respond to you? Are they going to get defensive and sort of become like really mean to you, or are they going to actually sit down and listen? A big part of what people aren't doing now is like just understanding each other. There's not a lot of let's understand one another. Like I'm 52 years old. I got a lot of life and I've been through a lot of things, and I don't know you my whole life. Now I know you. So like you should really like get to know who I am, and I would love to get to know who I'm with.
And you're a dad also.
Days,
so, if something comes up with a custody schedule or your daughter needs you, if somebody doesn't get that, then you do kind of have to question their understanding, which is why, if somebody doesn't have kids, I usually will grill them a little bit on why they didn't have kids, how they feel about kids, and even though my kids are grown, family is really critically important. And if somebody doesn't get that we're parents first and lovers second, then that's a problem.
I agree. And I balance it out. I'm not one of these like, oh, my daughter's calling, I have to get off the phone this second. I mean, sometimes I feel that's like a way to get off the phone. My daughter calls, I could, text her and be like, I'll give you a call right back, and then easily get off the phone. But I don't like to cut someone down, off because, my kids like just walked into the room kind of thing. But, it's kind of funny because I think of this like 90 days as kind of like leasing the relationship with the option to buy. And I know it sounds terrible and people are like, no, but it's actually both of you. You're both doing this. Like the relationship is the thing you both are going in on. You don't have to end up with this person at the end of the day just because you went 90 days or, 2 months or however you want it to be. That's the way to get to know somebody. But just if you go slow and sort of that arc, that nice arc, and don't get ahead of yourself and fake future or, be totally anxious or try to figure out what somebody's like, who all their friends are on social media and go down the list, this anxious behavior is becoming a problem. You may be able to make it. You could if you like, you may be able to make it if you can like get through this thing slowly and just kind of be understanding, communicate.
Yeah, it's like a probation period at work. And then, if you are invested in the relationship and you do see red flags or pink flags, the same way you would do it in a corporate environment. I know you haven't worked in corporate, but, if I had an employee and things were not, 100%, that maybe they were like, 75%, but the person had potential, of course you sit down and you say, here are areas for development. And that in and of itself can be a really interesting experience. Is how well does somebody take criticism? How well do you deliver criticism, which is something I've gotten much better about. If someone gets immediately defensive or angry, as an ex who shall remain nameless often did, that should have been like a screaming red flag for me. It's like, if you can't take input from somebody who you care about, then that's problematic, because relationships, as we know, are tough and they take work and they take listening and they take communicating. So yeah, that's, definitely on the list of, how do you navigate those kinds of conflicts. Let's talk about travel for a minute, whether it's just a road trip or, a long weekend. What are some of the things that you found out about people the first time you've gone on a trip with them? Not talking about an acid trip, talking about like a car trip, a hotel stay.
Yeah. Well, their anxiety on traveling. I dated a woman who just did not want to get on the plane when everybody else was getting on the plane. And eventually it resulted in us like not getting on the plane because they shut the doors down. And then that became like a whole other ordeal.
Whoa. I was thinking more like
remedy the whole thing.
I was thinking more like Slurpee cups on the floor of the car. When you get in someone's car for the first time and you go like, man, you knew you were driving me somewhere. Could you have at least picked up your Kit Kat wrappers from the front seat?
Yeah. Most girls that I've dated or women I've dated, like their cars are pretty clean. They've never really had to worry about that stuff. But it's just really like how they go about it and just sort of relaxing a little bit instead of like this agenda. I'm really laid back. I always feel like we're supposed to, wherever we are is where we're supposed to be. As long as I'm with, this person, that's the person I want to be with. I'm not worried about like seeing this monument or going here or, trying to like fulfill every little thing. Let's just like hang out and relax. If we don't see nothing, who cares? We're seeing each other, right?
Yeah, but if you were dating
just have a
somebody
different-
who had a very different travel style and they had mapped out an itinerary and every hour on the hour was planned out, could you deal with that, or you think that would be an immediate no-go?
I think there's a compromise. I'm totally down for doing a lot of those things, but I also don't know how we're going to feel. Like we may wake up late, and we can change the plan. Like I will put an itinerary. I like to know where my stuff's going to be, but at the same time, it's always open to change. Like we may not want to like go to the Grand Canyon that day, or you know what I mean, or just do something else, or just like lay around and just have sex for like the afternoon. I mean, has to be open for interpretation, other than like, having a Post-it, like a calendar with Post-its all over it of every little dang thing we're going to be doing. I don't want that.
An alarm set on your phone. It's like, stop having sex, go see Grand Canyon.
Yeah. I'm not a type A personality type, so I really need, someone. I'm not even a planner. I just like, if people are like, oh, I'm just really flexible. If you want to like move it till tomorrow, we'll move it till tomorrow. It's not that big of a deal. I don't really like have my agenda set up for the week, but I don't know. I mean, I just think like really embracing and finding balance within those 90 days is really going to help. And traveling is definitely something is important. But I think in 90 days, I'm not really planning on like going far with them. Maybe like a quick weekend trip to like, the Berkshires or something would be kind of nice, and just kind of see how we hang out, how we like check out like vintage shops, and, how we just like chill out with each other in silence sometimes, otherwise it's like constant entertaining. And feeling like you have to like do something.
I went on a 9-day destination date with a guy who needed a +1 for a wedding. And so that was a huge risk. And I knew as soon as I got on the plane, before we even took off, that we were not a match. He was rude to the flight attendants. He was balling up his newspaper and throwing it on the floor. He'd been pretty civil up until that point. We'd had a few meals out, hadn't been intimate, never were after that experience. But I remember I was snacking on something and he's like, oh, how do you eat that? And then like 20 minutes later, he's like, oh, can I have a taste? I'm like, dude, like, don't judge me. Like, that's one of my, again, pink flags, red flags. Like, you do you, I do me, especially at this age. Once you're over 50, there's shit that you're going to do that it's your passion. It's your life. Like, there's a TV show that I watch, again, True Confession, some of my dirty little secrets, 90 Day Fiancé, which is kind of an interesting show because you'll be watching, and it's like watching a horror movie and you see people, heading into the basement where the axe murderer is, and you're like, no, don't do it. Don't get married. Yeah. Don't walk down the aisle. This is bad. And, we're all guilty of that too. I'm sure you and I have both been in relationships where by day 91, you're like, this isn't going to really work, but you're too lazy, too cowardly, too tired of online dating to break it off. So that would be my advice, is if by day 91 you're still having significant doubts and you've tried to talk to the other person about it, as from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, there's a scene where they're like screaming, run away, run away. And that voice is in your head and you just have to listen to it when it comes up.
Yeah, my past relationship, I think one of the things that we ended up doing that was tough within like those 90 days is like we were all over social media. We were, told our parents, our friends, like we were kind of invested too much, that there was this bit of pride, and like a lot of work that should have been done like way down the line has now like all been compressed. And it was like hard to remove myself, or her as well, because we were so set on it. It was like almost like we were like, you're my ride or die. We're going to make this thing happen. And it was already destined to fail from the beginning. We already had a bunch of problems.
Slow your roll. Yeah. It's funny because I see that all the time. There's some women who, all of a sudden they'll be posting, these selfies with their dude, and they have their arms around each other and their heads are together. And then like 2 weeks later, the person's gone and there's another person in the picture. And you're like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Like, there's a credibility issue here. Like, and romance is awesome and it's so heady,
Yeah.
but it can also really fuck up your head. Like, if you want so badly to be in a relationship, sometimes you just move too fast. So yeah, slow your roll.
Yeah.
You're in your 50s, I'm in my 60s. We have at least another 30 years left. So, it's not that big a rush. Take your time, be patient, get to know people.
I spent some good time just, working on the art of being alone, and not being lonely. There's times where you just wish, you had someone around, but it's like, are you content with yourself? And that security really helps, having like a secure attachment style when you meet somebody, because that's what I require. I mean, I understand there's anxious and avoidant, and I'm not saying that you can't be, but it's just like, I don't really work well with someone who's highly anxious or disorganized who does both, because I don't know where I sit and I don't want to deal with it, to be honest with you. I need confidence and someone who's more secure with themselves, because my life isn't easy. I'm not for everybody, but I'm definitely for someone. And if you can understand me and understand my friendships, like I'm friends with you, a woman may be like, well, who's Nancy? And then like, how long have you known her? And it's like, they don't want to know like the real parts about our friendship. They just want to know if we've dated or not. And it's like some sort of weird threat because you're a female. I'm actually kind of on the non-binary, friendships, because it's like, just refer to everybody as they, you know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
And there'll be no problems. So, it's just really understanding each other is a really big part of like getting there.
And you have a great non-binary name. I could just say I'm hanging out with my friend Casey and nobody knows if it's a guy or a woman. And, we've like hung out together. We had a couples massage when you were passing through Arizona. Like we're just as comfortable with you as I am with any of my female friends. And I don't know that I could be in a relationship. For me, that's another red flag is significant others who are so jealous that they insist that you cut all communication off with every ex. Because some of my best friends are guys who I've dated at various times in my life. And, if I love them as a friend, I'm going to love them as a friend forever. That's just how I roll.
I hear you.
So
no isolating and no alienating. Those are big red flags to me, without understanding. And I feel if you have people in your life, it's really up to you. It doesn't matter if it's a guy or a girl or anybody. People, I love when people are like, oh, well, he's gay. Actually, gay guys could be just as bad as a straight guy who wants you. I mean, they're the ones that like sort of, naysaying the relationship and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying all of them, but anybody can sort of be in the relationship that's going to sort of
friends can be very possessive. If someone's in a relationship and you're not, like the jealousy that can set in. But you said something really, really important early on, that when I started therapy 14 years ago, one of the first things my therapist said was, are you ready to be alone? And I thought I was, but honestly, I really wasn't until I would say probably 2021 when my mom died. And that was like a really big tipping point for me because I didn't have any close relatives. My older brother is still really, really terrific and supportive. But, having that internal fortitude is really key. I mean, I've been dating since I'm 14 years old. I've pretty much had up until, the time I got divorced, had always had a committed relationship of some kind. So learning how to be alone is both an art and a science. And I know you talked about OCD planning, but I do actually have a little cheat sheet of shit that I like to do when I'm alone. And if I ever find myself getting lonely or feeling alienated, I just pull something off that list. It could be something as simple as bake gluten-free muffins or knit a hat for one of my grandkids or turn the music up really loud and dance like an idiot around my living room.
Totally.
Read a book. Just everybody should have their solitude list and never feel like a loser, especially if you're looking at social media or you're talking to friends who are in committed relationships. Being alone, you're with your best. If you do it right, you're ultimately with your best friend when you're alone.
I agree. You always said to me, the grass is browner on the other side. So you should definitely appreciate your alone time.
Yeah, someone at Citibank said that to me. The grass is brown on both sides of the fence. So we're at the 5-minute mark. I just saw Romeo giving me the hand, not the finger, which is good. So anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, it's such a pleasure to have, you and I have known each other for so long, and to to come this far. We're definitely beezers, you know,
Oh,
like a
totally,
full-on
totally.
beezer here. Yeah,
And a
to
beezer
like,
is somebody
you know,
who
be here with you.
be in the moment, be relevant, be connected to other people, be active,
Yeah.
be curious. So Casey, why don't you tell our listeners what you do for a living and how they could get in touch with you if they want to hear more or know more or find out more about these attachment styles? Because there was a really great book, and I know you went back to school and got a degree that really gave you more insight into the human condition, which I was always super impressed by. So hit it, Casey.
Well, thank you. For a living, I do audio post-production for mostly like TV, film, radio, you know, so I'm like the guy who's mixing all this audio that goes, you know, most commercials and stuff like that. I'm also like a DIYer around the house. I love interior design and like building things, so people come to me for that. But my whole life, I've always been this sort of support system for people. And I've helped out countless people. And through my own journey of healing, people have like latched on to me through social media, stuff like that. And I've always been there as a support. So right now I'm developing a podcast, a support podcast, just, you know, very similar, but, you know, to help people out, give them my perspective. It's not for everybody, but it may relate or help somebody, help, you know, a friend, who knows. But I figured why not just be able to extend it as far as I can. But I'd love to add some music references,
That's
things
great.
like that.
Yeah,
Kinda,
you're a drummer
you know,
too, right?
yeah, I was raised as a drummer, you know, musical family, audio guy, and dad, you know. So I'm learning as I'm going too. I mean, I got great, you know, ex-wife. We co-parent really well, so I would love to like highlight those things for people. I've helped out plenty of divorces. Geez, I'm like done with divorces.
And
Never want to date another divorcee.
Now, what's your Instagram handle?
It's Casey Chester. That's it.
Yes,
CASEYCHESTER. And then, you know, that's a lot of like personal stuff, but I do like show like music editing and some of our work that we do. And, you know, there's
and home
all kinds of
decorating
little
inspiration.
things.
You know, I've been following along on your fitness journey and your home decorating journey. You're like one of my favorite sources of new creative ideas. So,
Yeah, thanks. I'm public.
It was very funny. I actually found the first picture that you took of me for my dating site. It was me, like, I think, sitting in front of your drum kit. I was on my way out to a nonprofit fundraiser and ended up getting a lot of comments on the picture because, you know, it was me and I'm all dressed up and I'm wearing boots and I'm sitting in front of drums. So it was definitely not your typical, you know, woman doing yoga pose stuff.
That was a great shot. That was in my bachelor pad after I got divorced.
Yep, exactly. So, and if you want to listen to more episodes of The Geezer Proofer, it's on Spotify, Apple, basically any channel where you get your podcasts. And if you would like to be a guest, I'm booking guests now through the spring and summer and into the fall. It's thegeezerproofer@gmail.com. And as Casey alluded to, a geezer is not a pejorative term. A geezer just means somebody who's stuck. And you could be a geezer at 15 or, you know, at 4 years old. A geezer is somebody who just does not want to move from where they are. Again, no judgment. But a beezer is somebody who be relevant, be in the moment, be ever-changing, be intergenerational, be kind of blind to new experiences, and always be learning as opposed to always be closing. And I think one of the things that we took away from today's discussion is don't worry about the closing. Your right person is out there and they will, you know, with a combination of manifestation and pragmatism, they will eventually appear. And just slow your roll, be patient, watch out for the danger signs, and keep on believing. Another be there. So thank you again, Casey. You've been a terrific guest. And looking forward to many more episodes. And please, again, feel free to listen to the past ones as well. So thanks everybody for listening. Be a beezer, not a geezer. Peace out.